Hello, all you gridiron fanatics out there. Glad you could join us here for another edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style, where we gab about all things pro football, from the scoops of the regular season to the scores of the postseason and the picks in the offseason. Let's start gabbing.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Dutch! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me, you're driving me nuts!
But behold,
Welcome back, you guys. Glad you are joining us here for another edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. I am, of course, Mr. CeeLo here, joining you back yet again. Here to talk with you about the season finale of Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, you guys, as we prepare to see if the New York Jets can make some kind of move in the final weeks that can possibly bring them to some kind of prominence for next season, or give them a positive push for next season. And then there's the Cleveland Browns, who are here as we speak, looking at a 10-5 season, hopefully trying to make a push to get that top wild card position, even though we know the Ravens have already taken the division. In most, retrospect, they would have to lose one of their final games, which is a possibility. They do have the Dolphins this week and the Steelers in the finale. But I really don't see that happening, especially with their victory over the 49ers last week. I do think the Ravens will take one of these games and make their stake and their claim for, to win the division and push forward into that bye that is ever so important this year, especially for a team like the Ravens. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to discuss the Cleveland Browns and their Thursday night matchup. Well, as I said, you guys, the subject at hand is, how will this Cleveland Brown team fare tomorrow night? Now, I will tell you this. I think everybody is picking the Browns to win this game, because most people don't know this. They're 7-1 at home. And the Jets are 2-4 on the road. Now, ironically enough, the Jets are 6-9. Most people probably did not know that the Jets were 6-9. But let me enlighten you. That doesn't mean we can count the Jets out, you guys. The Jets are still trying to they can push their way to be 8-9. Now, they're mathematically eliminated. We all know this. But could they be part of a spoiler group? Absolutely. They could very well be a part of a group of teams that can spoil other teams' opportunity. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that, looking at the playoff picture, are the Browns mathematically in? Not yet. A lot of people don't know this, but if the Browns were to lose out, and taking a look at the standings as we speak, there is a possibility the Browns could find their way on the outside looking in, because at this moment, they are the 5th seed. And let's keep in mind, people, you've got the 8-7 Bengals, you've got the 8-7 Steelers, the 8-7 Colts, the 8-7 Jaguars, the 9-6 Bills, whom were dead about a month ago. And ironically enough, you guys, I was going to put a show out on this one saying, can the Bills recover? And they have. Now all of a sudden we see the Kansas City Chiefs reeling. A team that has struggled as of late. And now they're on the cusp of losing the division. They're only 2 games up on the Raiders and Broncos. So that is why the Raiders and Broncos are not mathematically out of this thing. They could very well win this thing. And they've got head-to-head matchup this week. A major head-to-head matchup this week against the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that is on the cusp of trying to get into playoffs. They're ranked 10. They're in a 10 spot right now. But a huge win against this team could put the Bengals at 9-7 and the Kansas City Chiefs at 9-7. And honestly, with the Cleveland Browns being 10-5, I know a lot of people are saying, well, this thing is wide open. The Browns need a win this week, to pretty much secure their playoff lives. And see, because you're talking about a next week matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals, whom they've fared very well against in the Joe Burrow era. They haven't met since week 1. And ironically enough. But if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I want this game to be over with. I want this game to be done so I don't even have to worry about that Cincinnati game. I don't have to worry about having a desperation game to have to deal with getting guys hurt or I can get guys healthy. Especially given what the Browns have had to deal with, the adversity that these guys have had to deal with. This is a team that gives you the motto, next man up. They're the epitome of what goes on because Deshaun Watson, they've been absolutely just ravaged with injuries. When you go down the list, Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson Robinson, Nick Chubb, Jakeem Grant, Marquise Goodwin, and Dawson Deaton, Drew Forbes. And they've had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in and out of the lineup. Maurice Hurst. And Grant Delpit. These guys have just been absolutely just decimated. Even Dustin Hopkins, their place kicker, is going to be out this week. I mean, this team has just continuously been able to push and push. They've even got Anthony Walker out this week. And to see how these guys have been able to push through and just make the best out of the next man up mantra has just been nothing short of amazing. And then to see Joe Flacco, coming out of the woodworks out the street, soon to be 39-year-old Joe Flacco. And he's done just enough to get these guys over the hump, and that's what they asked of him. Now, last week he was more than just pedestrian. Remember, the last 2 weeks he's really been more than pedestrian. Since he's come back, he's been over 300 yards every game. And, you can look at his numbers and say, okay, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. But he's had enough to get them over the hump. But yeah, he has been exceptionally good. I can honestly tell you, when I saw this, I was like, oh goodness, because the last time we saw Joe Flacco, he wasn't very good. He was almost pedestrian. But honestly, seeing what he's done has been nothing short of remarkable. I'm happy for him. Former Super Bowl champion. But let's look over here at the Jets, a team that he was the last team he played for. We have to look at the New York Jets, and all we can say is, what's left? Obviously, the talk is always the big deal about Aaron Rodgers. I couldn't care less about what he has going on. As of course, today they put left tackle Dwayne Brown, 38-year-old Dwayne Brown, on injured reserve, which will probably end his career. And as I said, I don't go into talking about players and what their worth was to the team, but as we said, we see Zach Wilson is not playing. It's going to be Trevor Siemian again. And, this is what's huge about this game. Siemian has been good in places, but, the injury bug has hit the Jets too, but not nearly as bad as it hit the Browns. They've got Quentin Jefferson that's on IR, Zaire Barnes, and it's been a tough one. And of course, you guys know about Aaron Rodgers. That's been well documented. But for the most part, most of this team is intact. I just think, this offense has not been able to get it together. They've not been able to consistently run the football because they can't get much in the passing game, and they haven't been creative enough in the passing game to get things, going. And I ultimately believe some of that is schematic, and then some of it's just the inability of the quarterbacks to make the right throws at the right times. And it's just a shame. You look at this team, you look at this Jets team, and they're so good. And you look at the Solomon Thomases, the Jermaine Johnsons, C.J. Mosley, Quincy Williams, and of course Sauce Gardner, Jordan Whitehead, and DJ Reed. These guys are so good back on that back end, and you can't say enough about as good the greatness of this defense. They're just so good, and really all they have to do is get a few things done, make a few plays, and they could be 9-6. Kind of reminds me of Rex Ryan's Jets. A lot of times you have to be patient and take your shots where you can. But I ultimately see some things going the way of the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are a patient football team. Now I know the scores are going to, the scores that the Jets have put up in the and the Browns are not reflective of what they do as far as scoring 30 points. It's been tough sledding for the Jets. The Jets haven't scored 30 points but twice this season. And you can't win games if you're not scoring 30 points at a regular clip. Not saying that's a requirement, but that's just not going to cut it. And one thing I think they do have working in their favor is that the Cleveland Browns are a good defensive team getting to the passer. Okay? Getting to the passer. The thing I think what makes Cleveland vulnerable in some instances is their inability to stop the run at times. Now, I'm not saying they don't. Now, I'm not saying that they stop the run efficiently all the time. I'm not saying that. But what I will say is this, is that they're a good enough defense that they make you make mistakes with Myles Garrett. They're one of those teams that's really hit or miss. It really is. You can look at a lot of the numbers that the opposing offenses get, and it's kind of like, I mean, you got some really upside down scores. You got 3 points given up given up to the Bengals, 3 points given up to the Titans, and then you got 28 they gave up to the Baltimore Ravens, but they only scored 3 points. Then you got 17, and then you got a shutout to the Cardinals. Then you got 33 to the Baltimore Ravens yet again, 13 to the Steelers, 29 to the Broncos, 36 to the Rams, 27 to the Jaguars, 17 to the Bears, and of course last week 22 to the Texans. Now, I do think when you look at it all, when you look at the entire totality of what this is going to entail, looking at, I will just take and look at what went down in the Houston Cleveland game when we talk about the totality of what they gave up, because that was an entertaining football game despite having no C.J. Stroud. And what really concerns me about the Cleveland Browns against the Jets is, you're looking at rushing first downs, and they only gave up 3. And like I said, the Jets have a huge issue with throwing the football. A huge issue. Now, you look at the yardage, they only threw 478 yards. But then they ran for 72. But here's the issue here. Both teams had 2 turnovers. And Houston had a kick return for a touchdown with Dameon Pierce. Now, the Jets, if anybody can score on special teams, it's going to be the Jets. They're going to come up with creative ways to get guys the football and be able to get things in it. However, as I said, Cleveland's got such a good defensive front. They're going to try to win up front. And I ultimately believe Cleveland's going to be patient. They're going to take their shots at one Sauce Gardner and those guys. But I don't think they're going to be too out there trying to, because they know the Jets have limited options on offense. I think Flacco's going to be very reserved because they know this is a team that can beat you with mistakes. Just ask the Buffalo Bills. They beat you by giving them opportunities. You keep giving them opportunities and taking away opportunities from yourself. That's how they beat you. I don't think they're afraid of Trevor Siemian hurting them, and they're going to stack the box for Hall and company, and I just don't see this going the way of the Jets. However, I still think this is going to be one of those games. Kind of reminds me of the Jaguar game last year on Thursday night, you guys. The Jets are going to hang around, and I think the coaching staff for the Browns is going to keep them in it. You know, and I ultimately believe that is what's going to be the difference in the ball game is the Jets. If the Jets can make enough plays on mistakes that the Browns are going to make, I think they get a little bit out of sorts with it. You know, this game's going to be this has to be a Breece Hall game. As we see, you know, Dalvin Cook has been put back to the third level. He's not even really a factor as such anymore. But I will say this, you guys. I think they're going to make a few big plays. Don't count it out. I think Xavier Gibson and Garrett Wilson, of course, is going to be the guy. And you can't forget about Allen Lazard. I think ultimately Siemian tries to take a couple of shots. Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson is not going to be a factor. I think the Browns do everything possible to take him out of the game. I think they more than likely they put Denzel, with Denzel Ward and Gary Newsome the second out there, they're going to blanket him. More than likely put a safety over the top, more than likely. These are two of the premier corners duos in the league right now. But I think Myles Garrett doesn't even give Siemian a lot of time to make throws. He's going to be a nightmare. And then, of course, you got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out there who is just their, he's their Swiss Army knife. And I just don't think this is going to be a game that is going to be favorable for this Jets team. The only way they're going to win this game is by turnovers. But let me know what you guys think. As I said, you guys go to the Facebook page and put your comments in there of ways you want to see the show get better, as well as putting your comments down on the show and let us know what we can do to make it better and how much you enjoy a Gridiron Arab Pro Style. But that's going to do it for Mr. CeeLo's breakdown of the final Thursday night game of 2023. Hopefully you guys have an awesome new year. And until the next time, same Gap channel, same Gap platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.